What's up, everybody? This is Herschel Fruin, and this is the Top 200 podcast. I just want to welcome everybody back. I know it's been a little bit of time since the last time I did a podcast. I didn't really jump on anything throughout COVID and throughout, just before the start of the season because I wasn't really sure what was going on. I wasn't really sure, given any information about what was going on, or even if Rugby was going to start up. And so I didn't really say that much about it, just in case. I was putting down my own thoughts in terms of how this would all turn out if we didn't even get a season, because and I was thinking about it more from the angle of a lot of the seniors that are finishing, a lot of the year 13s playing this year. That's something that I was thinking about more of it, because and I mean a lot of people are gonna talk about it in terms of like, this doesn't matter, it's just high school first 15 rugby, and I keep having to tell people and inform people that it's not. It really is the beginning of your career, and it really is the interview for you to get a job and a career as a rugby player. That's kind of what it is. That's kind of what first 15 rugby is right now. And again, I don't care what people tell you in terms of, they're just kids and they've still got some club rugby to play. Because if you actually talk to people that are in the provinces and in the unions and ask them where they get their rugby talent from, or most of them, it is going to be from first 15 rugby. That's why you see guys jump up from first 15 rugby to the bench of an ITM Cup team. And then some of them even start an ITM Cup game in the year after they finish high school. And people may think that, and if you're still thinking like that, then you are still stuck in the time of you had to put 5-6 years into club rugby before you got a call up, and that is pretty ridiculous to think now. And the reason why it's different now is because I want to give a big shout out to all the coaches around the country, all the coaches that coach from under 13s all the way to under 18s. Our coaches are so much better. Our kids are so much more knowledgeable and exposed to a lot of good coaches that are out there. People may think that we don't have good coaches, but that's the reason why our kids are so good, is because our coaches are also good. And that's where I give a shout out to also the unions and providing a lot of our players with good coaches. And a lot of our boys are a lot more developed than what, say, I was when I was at school, or the guys that I was around was at school. I went to, I was in the same year as guys like Joe Rokotoko and John R4, Jerome Kaino, Luke McAllister, guys like that. And these guys now are far more developed than what those guys were back then. And that's the reason why these guys can make such a big jump and into these ITM Cup teams, into these semi-professional teams, because a lot of them have physically gotten better because of the programs that coaches put forward to them, and because of the coaching that these kids get at under 15s into first 15. And that's why we have so much talent here. That's why our players are so much more developed. And that's why a lot of countries do come here to get their talent and get them young as well, because we have them already developed. That's why the NRL signs our kids and leave them in first 15 rugby here, because they're so much more developed. It's a better competition than what they have over there. Why would they take them over? NRL just goes, well, you guys do the work and we'll just leave our kids there, because the high level, it saves them money, as well as it's the high level of trainings and games and intensity that we have here in New Zealand. Now, if you're still sitting back and thinking, well, that they're still kids. These kids still have dreams. Like, they're not just kids. A lot of these kids are more clued up and are more informed because they have the internet, because they see a lot more things, that they know that a career is only so small, and you have to do, you have to take your opportunities as it comes, and and make the most of it while you can. Now, if this year wasn't going to go on, some of these year 13s and some of those year 13s that went from year 12 to year 13 and had a good blossoming, well worked, well trained off season, they're not gonna, they're not going to get seen. The progress is not going to be seen. The progress is not going to be recorded and talked about by people like myself. Sky Sports are going to miss out on showing and showcasing a bunch of new talent. You're not going to get Ken Laban talking about them because he can't, because, we won't have rugby going on. And so for these year 13s this year, it's important that they get seen. It's important that their work goes unnoticed, that they did over some of the hard work that they put into it every single day, every single morning, all the sacrifices they make. It's important that that happens because they know that if they want a career in rugby, this is what they need. This is what they need to do. They've only got so much of a gap to prove themselves. Now, some people may get that opportunity, some people may not. But these guys are doing everything that they can to make sure that they get the opportunities and take the opportunities as it comes. And I think that that's important as well. I even think, and I've talked about this before as well, is that we do need a draft. As much as a lot of people don't like it and just like, well, yeah, well, you're going to Americanize it in Hollywood. It's like, yeah, well, that's why our kids like watching Ballers Life. It's because we see a bunch of kids ripping up on the basketball court and them getting noticed even before they go to college, or some of them skipping and coming down to New Zealand, like LaMelo Ball and what's his name for the Breakers. Like, those guys came down here as top prospects, and LaMelo Ball is probably going to be number one. But then, like, at the same time, it's just like they're doing that up there, and we may not like it, and that's fine. But we're not doing any justice for our sport and for our talent and for the product that we have here in New Zealand, which is our young kids coming out of high school. Now, I'm gonna say it again, is that we need a draft, and this was like the perfect opportunity for New Zealand rugby to find something new, to find something that's young and energetic, and that was at a time when everything was shut down. There was no revenue coming in. Why did you not hold a draft and hold a combine that you could film around the world that everybody is going to see because everyone wants some kind of sport? You could film the combine, get people to jump on advertising for it, live stream it, and then either put a subscription on it or something. A bunch of people around the world are going to see it because everyone wants to see what talent we have. Why couldn't you guys have done that? Why couldn't you guys done a full combine, make sure that we watch all the combine, do all these little stories and Hollywood up a little bit, which is fine, and then put it out as a product so that all these boys can get seen, all these young guys that are still in club rugby that are waiting for their chance. It gives them another opportunity to show out what they have or what they have developed. Like guys that came out of high school that may have not had the biggest first 15 career in high school, but all of a sudden they just had this explosion of realization, and they just caught up and they just got it. And then now as club players, they're really good. And they're only maybe like 20, 21, 22. You can still all put them into a combine and have everybody see them and have everyone have a look at them and then televise it. And then have a draft at the end of it with stories to go along with it, with, parade it up, make it look pretty and all that kind of stuff, and have some stories to tell. And at least all the eyes are going to be on New Zealand rugby. Now, this can work. Now, if you're thinking, like, what about the millions of dollars that they get? I'm not talking about millions of dollars. I'm just talking about the opportunity to show our talent. The opportunity to make sure that everyone sees what we have and how much we have and how rich we are in terms of talent when it comes to high school rugby. Like, the only one that has probably the similar amount and the same... no, they have the similar amount and level as talent as we do. They just have more of them. Is South Africa. And I think they should do the same thing too. Now, they're a bit scared because, France is coming and stealing a lot of their players. But that's just how it is. You can't hide talent. Especially if you're going to televise games, you're not going to hide the talent. But at least leave it up to kids and parents to make a decision on what they want to do for their future, because the Chiefs are always going to be around, the Blues are always going to be around, the Sharks are always going to be around in whatever capacity that they're going to be at. But this kid only has a few years, maybe less, to prove that he can be a professional. And remember, only 3.4% of that's still the percentage will make it to become a professional. Have a look, and I'll do this myself as well. I'm going to show you guys like sort of numbers of guys that go from the number of guys that go from New Zealand secondary schools into the under-20s, then from the under-20s into professional rugby and into the All Blacks. I promise you, if you just look, and I'll just show you numbers. I don't want to put names out there because that's not fair. But if you just see the pure numbers of it and how much it cuts down, and even those guys that don't make those teams, that still make it through as well, it's still only a small percentage of numbers. So why wouldn't you want to, why wouldn't you want to put that out there, gather as much players as you can? You can't always just rely on people's opinions and stuff. Like even myself, I wish that someone else did this with me, like another company did it against me, so that people could have like a different perspective of what someone else is saying. I'm the only one that cares about this much. I care about the talent, and I'm not just talking rugby, I'm talking basketball as well. I wish I could do basketball. I wish I could do cricket. I wish I knew more about cricket so I could start cricket instead of start rugby, because the cricket guys seem to like it a lot more. They ask me all the time. The soccer guys ask me all the time. The rowing fellas ask me all the time. The league guys are always going, you only promote league players that play first team rugby. I was like, yeah, well, I can't be everywhere at one time. But we need more opinions on guys that are on our talent that are here that are young. And now young people need to be talked about. We're only a small country that puts out a huge amount of talent in terms of sport. And I'm just talking sport. We have so much talent here, but no one wants to talk about them. I don't know why. And it annoys me. And this passion I picked up from watching guys from America go into basketball, because basketball is my favorite sport. I used to buy Slam magazines. All you old guys who are around the same age as me, from 30s to 40s, know what Slam magazine is. And a lot of you guys used to probably go down to the dairy and buy it from the dairy as well, or go down to whatever. I used to go to this card shop because I used to collect basketball cards as well, as probably as some of your dads did as well. And I used to go to this place called Mark 1 down here in Hamilton. And I used to buy the Slam magazine and then buy some basketball cards to go along with it. And I also got my basketball cards as well. And the only reason why I like this level is because of my interest in basketball. In the Slam magazine, they used to have sort of like a weekly article from a first 15 player who was, from a top basketball player. And then he used to just talk about his week and talk about his preparation, camps he was going to, his schooling, things like that. And I was genuinely interested in that, because I was also at high school too, 13-year-old at Church College. And then I was also reading about this other high school kid who was a senior and looking at what he was going through as a basketball player. Now, I would love that. Like, if one of you rugby guys want to jump on and do that for me, and I'll just post it up on my website as well, that would be cool. Just a little insight, a weekly insight on what it is, the games that you have coming up, the game that you just finished, things like that. But my interest came from them. That's why I knew who LeBron was before he came in. I knew who Carmelo was before I came in. I knew who Dwight Howard was before he came in. Sebastian Telfair and LeBron James on the cover was pretty cool back then, back in the days. And so, like, a lot of these guys I saw before they came through. And then I always just wondered why our kids, why we didn't do that here with rugby. Like, back at school, like, there was this guy at St. Paul's Collegiate. He made New Zealand secondary schools too. I think his name was David Johnson, I think his name was. Huge white kid, massive as legs, fast as hell. And he used to smash everybody. There was him and Toby Lynn was in that team. Willie Huffu, who used to go to Kelson Boys, and he came down to St. Paul's Collegiate, and he made New Zealand secondary schools that year, I think, as well. But it would have been interesting if those guys back in those days also were talked about and had columns, and and people just had a little bit of insight on what the top players around the country are doing. Like, I know that thousands of people look at my website every single week. I check the numbers every single week. Thousands of the kids jump on, thousands of parents come on, coaches, everybody. Everybody that says that they don't agree with what I'm doing, come on my website, because I see you log in, buddy. So stop talking this rubbish about me. And this is what I don't like, is that people say what I'm doing for college first team players and putting these young kids on pedestals is wrong. So why are you looking at my website? Because it's interesting. It's interesting to know who these kids are. It's interesting for a kid who's been stuck in Palmerston North his whole life, doesn't really know any better because he doesn't really go anywhere, and find out that there's a better kid than the guy that's at his school, and this kid is down south. Like a kid who goes to Christchurch Boys goes, oh, I thought this guy was the best in the country, only because that's all he knows. And then he finds out there's this kid in Hamilton, or this kid in Auckland, or this guy in Gisborne, or this guy in Hawke's Bay. Like, that's the beauty of this, is that everyone gets to know who is out there and who is coming through, and they get to follow their careers. Now, wouldn't a draft be the best position and best place to put all of that? And we can see combines. We can see them work out. Have all the props and specialist things, have all the locks and specialist things, have all the loose forwards, halfbacks, tens, and we just watch them go through their things. We get to see our coaches train these guys in specific little workouts that they do for that position, and we get to see it and watch it and see what's coming through, get to know the players, and so when they get drafted to our area, cool, we know who this guy is. We like this draft pick. Yeah, we can watch it with that same interest. That's why fantasy blew up. That's why fantasy basketball blew up. That's why fantasy baseball blew up. That's why the fantasy NRL league, that blew up too. Because now we get to know all these guys and we get to see different things. We get to feel like we have some kind of, not control, but it's like we're predicting it. Everyone wants to say that, yeah, I saw this kid at school, I knew he was going to be an All Black. Yeah, you say that about 40 kids. One of them paid off and all of a sudden you're a genius. Everyone wants to have that feeling. Everyone wants to talk like that. Why can't New Zealand Rugby just do something like that? Why don't they just listen to other people or listen to the younger ones? I listen to younger ones all the time. I tell you guys this all the time. I have kids message me and say, oh, I've got a kid who's better than this kid that you said. I say, oh, cool, tell me why. Let me know what you know. I don't know everything. I learn from everybody. I talk to everyone, and then I get their opinions, and I think, well, yeah, that kind of seems right. Yeah, I was wrong on this kid. He is a bit better than what, like this other kid told me. I say, yeah, of course. Still got to listen to everybody. Maybe that's what New Zealand Rugby is not doing. That's what, like, these guys are getting wrong, is that they're not really listening, and they're not really paying attention to how things are going, or how the world is turning and changing in that way. I've been talking about podcasts for a while. I've been doing podcasts for a while, and I should be more consistent. And that's a failure on my part, is that my time management is terrible, but I should be doing more podcasts. I've been doing it for a few years, and all of a sudden, I think my first podcast came out 4 years ago. And now everyone's like jumping on this podcast thing, saying that, oh, this is a good one. I said, yeah, I told you that ages ago. Because I was listening to it ages ago. I was listening to Joe Rogan when they first started, to Your Mom's House when they first started, to Brilliant Idiots when they first started, to the Bobby Tiger Belly podcast. I've been listening to a lot of this stuff. But the thing is that we never, like, especially with New Zealand Rugby, they never listen to anyone. To me, and this is just my opinion, I feel they don't listen to anyone. And to me, I think we had a perfect opportunity where nothing was going on, everything was unsure, but you can be sure about a draft. You can sure be about a draft for next year. You can even still do that now. At the end of this year, once the ITM Cup finishes, or whatever the competition they're going to have, they can still have a draft for those that have not got a team, guys that are just out of high school, guys that are 2 years out of high school, who are just blowing up now in club rugby, to give them an opportunity to get signed somewhere. Because a lot of guys will move. A lot of guys will move. Whatever job that they have, if they have an opportunity and a shot, they'll make it work. Especially when it comes to studies as well. do something with your university and talk it out and find a way that they can study and live in a different place if they have to. We got too much technology for us to be stuck in one place. Oh, no, you have to do it here. No, Zoom says we don't have to. FaceTime says we don't have to. Things like that. We can work it out. I just don't think they want to work it out. But I think that we missed a perfect opportunity. I think we missed a perfect opportunity to do something like this and to even create something different that you can do yearly. And if we had a draft and we had a combine and then a draft, yearly, everyone would watch. Everyone would tune into that. And we'll be the first rugby people to do it. And that's why I'm happy that the basketball did it as well. They should have just had a combine at the same time. So that, Mark Peart and Nathan Rade, their names weren't put down. Imagine seeing those two at the combine, shooting threes with the racks, trying to grab rebounds and, running the court with like actual basketball players. It would have been funny because Nathan's funny. Like Mark Peart is funny. But we got to wean out some of those guys. And I love them too. They're my mates. But it's just funny that their name was in it. But I mean, if you had a combine and watching all the halfbacks just firing shots, giving them targets, giving them timing, drills, things like that, stuff that you see Aaron Smith jumps on, I think it's Rugby Toolbox, something like that, and shows things. That's what I want to see. I want to see guys like that. I want to see old coaches or coaches that are coming up, training these guys and going, we're going to do halfbacks. We're going to do second five midfield stuff, running drills, line drills, tackling drills, show them in the classroom, things like that. I want to see that stuff. That's just what I'm interested in. And I think a lot of people are as well. I think a lot of people are interested in the psychological thing of it and even like the sports planning of it all and how intricate these guys get into all these little details on how things run, body position, spacing, footing, things like that. I like that kind of stuff. Always have. That's why I like football and I like basketball. And football, I mean NFL football, not football, soccer. But as for all those things, I just think that we had an opportunity to set up a draft, to set up a combine, to set up a draft, and then be the only ones to have something sporting on. Everyone would have watched. Millions of people around the world would have watched. I think so, anyway. And I still think they can do it. If you want help, hit me up. All right, New Zealand Rugby. Not that you like what I'm doing, as you've told me many times before, but you got to do something. Players are leaving. That's why guys like Oosh, like those guys over there, they've made it possible as well. They've given players a platform to control how they want to do stuff, who they want to play for, where they want to go in their next career. And it's going to be hard for agents to, convince them otherwise. Because you get to keep your percentages. You can have your discussion. You can sit down and find out where you want to go. Or where you want to go. Or where you and your missus want to go to. And where you've decided that, we think it'll be better over here in Italy. Or we think it'll be better over here, in France or Japan. And let's stay home in New Zealand. Let's just go to Australia. All these stuff like that. And so, as the game is changing now, the New Zealand Rugby's got to do something. I mean, they brought in sabbaticals. It's like, don't call it sabbaticals. We know what that is. We're not idiots. We know that you're giving them the opportunity to go make some money and come back. Don't call it a sabbatical like we don't know what that is. Hey, it kind of annoys me. It really does. And New Zealand Rugby's trying to keep all these players. And I've said it all the time. I'm for the player first. I don't care if guys stay in New Zealand to play rugby. I don't care if they choose to go to a league. I don't care if they choose to go to America and play. All I care about is kids that get opportunities, that players get opportunities. And I still care about guys that I had on my first list. When some of them message me and go, hey, I haven't heard from my agent. can you just ask if, if I'm still signed with them or if I can go another route? I was like, what? How do you not know that you're still signed with someone? Or how does your agent not talk to you? And those are the things that bug me. So something has to be different. Something's got to change. So these kind of things is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at stuff like draft. I'm looking at stuff like combine. I'm looking at stuff like oosh. I'm looking at stuff where I think players have to help out players. And this is something that's kind of annoyed me as well, is that, and it annoys me. It annoys me with Pacific Islanders too. It annoys me because the same problems that we had in the early 2000s in terms of Pacific Island players, we still have the same problems right now. And to me, I don't know if they are doing anything to help out, but it doesn't really feel like there is any movement in what's going on, because everything is the same. Nothing's really helping out these, helping out any of the players, especially the younger ones coming through, and there's no like mentorship or guys that just go, you've got to be careful of this. You've got to be careful of that guy. You've got to be careful when they say stuff like this. You've got to be careful when they phrase something this way, or what those lines actually mean. Like I've always talked about, and I've told even agents and agencies, if the kids' parents do not speak English, bloody get it translated into Samoan and Tongan and Fijian, so that they can be a part of it. And this is the other side where the parents, it's like, if I was a parent, I'll go, and like my parents couldn't speak English, which they can, they perfect English because they were brought up here. I would say, translate it. My mom and dad don't know how to read this. My grandma who's looking after me doesn't know how to read this. My uncle doesn't know how to read this. Change it to English. Like, make that effort to go and get it done, so you can really show that you care about it. Let them read the contracts. Let them know what it is. Even for schools that are recruiting kids whose parents can't speak English, and they need some kind of real clarification on what they're actually doing and what you provide as a school, get someone to translate it. Find a Samoan or Tongan, a kid in your school whose parents are bilingual parents who can speak both languages, and say, hey, do you have anyone who's really good at language who can translate this for us, so we can show other kids that want to come in, so the parents have full understanding of what's going on. And I know, and don't sit there and think that, yeah, we have that. No, you don't. 100%. I know all you schools, and no, you don't. But you better get onto it. Be fair to those parents. The Pacific Rugby Players Welfare, the one that's run by Dan Leo, that is like the best thing that has started for Pacific Islanders. And it should have started like 10 years ago. This guy was the only one that had the sense to go, stuff this. We're getting played around too much. We got to get this started. And finally, a bunch of people have jumped on. A bunch of players have jumped on. We've got to be more vocal. Talk about our mental health issue. Talk about what really bothers us. Talk about, teach guys how to go from a village to a bloody city where people don't speak your language, and help them out. All you guys that are overseas playing rugby overseas, and you have a young guy come into your city that doesn't really know how to speak English properly, and he's Samoan, Tongan, or Fijian, you guys should have the responsibility to go and help that kid out so he doesn't make stupid mistakes. And so he has an understanding of what's going on, and then help them out. And I'm not just talking that. Even all you white players from New Zealand that go to a different country, or you New Zealanders over there, take care of that boy. Make sure he's all right. It's hard to leave a family. He's trying to make the same sacrifices that you made, but have some responsibility and help that kid out. I'm not saying that that's not like that they don't do it, but there's not enough of people doing it. Especially our own New Zealanders that come over. Help them out, man. Warn them about different stuff. Show them what the new customs and cultures are in different countries. If you're going to Hong Kong, like, yeah, you can't go to Hong Kong and be a New Zealander there used to what you're doing, because their customs may be different, their cultures may be different, and you're fitting into their lifestyle. It's not the other way around. And you got to have a bit more respect for like things like that and the way that it goes. But if you guys don't know about the Pacific Rugby Players Welfare and Dan Leo, like, have a look at it. Have a look at the things like those ones. Oh, that was painful to watch. Because he just didn't know. Daldo didn't even know what was wrong. He didn't even know what he was doing was that bad. He didn't even think that it was that strange. Even Trevor Leota, who I used to idolize as a kid, he used to smash everyone coming out of Kelso. Play for Manu Samoa, like, he was the same, man. He was just like, but no one really warned him or helped him. Like the story that came on the news just a while ago, and I posted it up again, of Nepo and Ufa was on there as well as Augie. All three of them are getting into something that we as Polynesians don't talk about, and that is business, life, being able, understanding what investments are, understanding what your future is after the game, and having talks like that. I know we don't have Pacific Islanders. We don't have those kind of discussions at the dinner table. We don't have those discussions with our parents because we're too scared to be told to be quiet and shut up. And it's just like, well, if you're not, grateful of the money, then get out of the house. And that's not what we're saying, but that's what we think our dad and mum was going to say to us if we go, "Hey, Dad, how do we start a business?" He's like, "What, start a business? What, is this money not good enough for you? Get out of my face." Like, that's the kind of reaction that most of us are looking at. We feel like we're going to offend them or anything like that, whereas we're just curious and asking questions. But we need more discussions. We need to talk about that stuff a lot more. Especially as Islanders, we need to talk about that kind of stuff more. And examples like Ufa and Nepo and that, and Augustine is that, I think those are great examples of guys that we should look at and then try and change it. Sonny Bill Williams is another one who dabbles in everything. Who cares about the code that he plays and doesn't play and whatever? What a lifestyle he has. What a lifetime of achievements he's been able to achieve and accomplish, and I don't know why we don't celebrate him more. It's like we like bringing him down. It's like we like to hate on him for some reason. It's strange. It's strange that even Islanders do it. Even guys like David Tua, who's one of the greatest Samoan sportsmen ever, and one of the greatest New Zealand sportsmen ever, and was named number 35, I think it was, or something like that, in the top 50 greatest boxers of all time. We look at him terribly as well. Like it was his fault that he got ripped off. Like, what? No way. He's a great guy. He's a great dude. He's a legend. He really is a legend. And we bring him down for some reason. And we do that to our own people, and that should change. That should change. That should change, and that should be part of the mental health thing. Needing help mentally is not a weakness. It's an advancement in who you are as a character of who you are. It's an advancement of knowing who you are. Like, I know exactly who I am. You can't tell me something I don't know about myself. Easy. And I don't fall for that kind of stuff. But that's why something that, people, especially Pacific Islanders, will use it as as a weakness. Like, it's like, man, that's not a weakness. I already knew it myself. Yeah, I can admit to myself of the faults that I have. Of course. It's like, man, I have two cousins who are losing weight, same size as me, lost weight. One lost something like 50 kgs, another one lost something like 20 kgs. You think I look at myself and go like, nah, I'm fine? No, I went and did a workout this morning. I had to. Of course, because I know what my weaknesses are. You guys read my writings. I know what my weaknesses are. Yeah, I'm not a journalist. I never studied English or studied any kind of media studies at school. This is something that I just had to do. Yeah, I know my white writing's weak. I know my sentence structures aren't good, and my, play on words is terrible, and like English lit and that kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, cool, fine. Doesn't bother me, but I work at it because I know I have to. Because I'm all about trying to provide opportunities for the boys, and if I'm not talking about them, then nobody is. And that's what my purpose is, and that's what I feel like I need to do, and to owe it to all those kids that put in hard sacrifices. And I'm not just talking Islander kids. I'm talking all kids in New Zealand that play rugby. And I hope I have enough time and get enough help to start on watching the girls play and advancing them in this game. Because for a long time they're down. I'm so glad that their competition is going on too. I'm so glad that their one was picked up as well, and they can also have a season. Yeah, but that was just one of the things I wanted to talk about. And it's, long-winded and all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry, but that's just what I wanted to say. And now that we got a season, right? And I was looking at some of the competitions, and like, for example, I went to the Otahu and Aotearoa game. I don't really want to talk about it because it didn't end good. And for 3/4 of that 4-quarter game, it was bad, man. And that's why I just stopped recording. I stopped. I would record something, and then stuff would go on, and I was like, I can't post this because of that kid. He's doing that. I can't post it. And so I would stop posting it. I wouldn't post it. Then I'll record again just so we can get some action of that, and so people could see what's going on. And then it happened again, and it just happened again, and I was just like, man, stuff this. I'm not going to record this and put this out there. Because you're still going to remember that they're kids, and they're still going to make kid mistakes. We have adults that still make kid mistakes. It's just natural. So I'm not going to put it down on these kids, but I'm not going to show it either. But you kids that played in that game, and you know who you are, and you know what you did, just be more responsible. If you're on the rugby field, play rugby. If you want to do MMA, go ahead and do that. We now have one of the best gyms in the world, best coaches in the world, arguably the best fighter in the world right now. Go to that gym. Where's that? Out in West Auckland and that? But if you're going to play rugby, just play rugby. I know that your temper gets to you, and people just talking smack to you gets into your head. But at the same time, you just don't want to have that character flaw about yourself, because then teams don't want to sign you. Teams don't want to have a cancer in their locker room and have that kind of character stuck in their locker room when they have teams. You just don't want that. Doesn't matter how good you are. People lose careers over that. And you don't want to do that at first team rugby and have it end so quick because you're trying to fight on the field or have a go at somebody. So just be mindful of that, everybody that's out there in first 15. Be mindful of just who's watching you. That's all I'm saying. And it was a good game for the little parts that I picked out. Aotearoa have a big team. I like the size that they have. I like the forward pack that they have. I think that they need to switch around a few more players, and I think it's more about finding the combinations that work for them as what Aotearoa needs to look at more than anything else. They have a new coaching staff, which is great, and they'll figure it out. They'll have a look and they'll figure it out as they get to know their players. And it's just sad that we had a season like this, because then they don't get the due time that they need to do stuff like that. Otahu College is the same, where they just got a lot of raw talent. They got a lot of league players on their team, and they just need to be a bit more structured and finding that balance of how they can use their league talents and put it into rugby, and making sure that they have that going on for them. Um, the Auckland Grammar was always going to be strong, and I knew that. Their one in the backline is probably their backline is probably something that maybe needs attention, and it is more about players, and they have some good players coming through. And I think they're just trying to find different positions where to put the players, because everything's going to be based around Fihi. Whanganofo is going to be, he's going to be the main one, and so I think that in the backline, that's where it has to, because Theon at halfback is going to be one of those key players. Even on Saturday, he played really quick on Saturday. He was really fast. A few rusty spots, but that's just what everybody is going through right now. So that's not really a thing, because everyone was a bit rusty on that. Timing had to be done, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, but Auckland Grammar definitely are going to be one of the top teams to beat this year. And like but both teams had their stronger ones starting, and then sort of started weeding out all the older players and gave a lot of young players some time on the field. And so I think the Auckland Grammar young boys were better than the Mags young boys. The gap was a lot closer from the older boys to the young boys in Auckland Grammar, but the gap was too far in the Mags one. And so when they had that sort of switch over, the Auckland Grammar boys just took that lead out a bit better. I think in the season when they actually play, that Mags and Auckland Grammar game is going to be really, really close. Because Mags have a bunch of boys coming back there. I think they have a few league boys jumping in their team as well. But I think that gap is going to be a lot smaller. And I still think that Grammar's a better team, but that scoreline is going to be like a 22-16 kind of scoreline. And so Mags are not far away, but at the same time, Auckland Grammar have to keep that mental edge over them and that toughness as well. And that was, I mean, like I think Finau was always impressive. Halafihi. And obviously, as a New Zealand secondary school player coming back this year, obviously he's going to be one of the best players in the country. He looked in shape, still real big and strong. Maybe, if anything, maybe just the throwing. But to me, again, that's just rust from not having a season, and it just takes a little bit to get in. I'm not too worried about how that's going to affect him, because I think it's going to be quick for him to get over that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was all I took back from that game. They had Cassius in first 5 for Mags, which I thought was an interesting move. Not surprising, just interesting. Because Cassius can be, he can play in second 5 as well. He is a league boy that's come over and is now playing first team rugby. But he's one of those guys as well that I think he can change the way that the team can perform. Like he is a game changer. And so Cassius, and I'm talking about Cassius Cowley. He's just going to be one of those guys, and then when you fit in guys like Tama as well, Tama Anderson at fullback, they will get it done. They'll find ways to incorporate everybody. And there was a league guy in the center. I forgot what his name was, but he was another one. Oh, and a big shout out to the two boys, the two props for Mags. Damn, they lost a lot of weight. I remember in the under 15s, they lost a lot of weight. They did great, and you could see it in their gameplay as well. They were so good, and I think they're both year 12 as well. So it's going to be cool to see how see them build muscle and get used to their body. And the other thing is that, and people don't really think about, is like when you lose weight, especially as a young kid, and I was kind of the same as that. You just rely on how heavy you are, and you just don't tend, especially in scrums, you don't tend to push because they can't even hold your weight, so you're just normally pushing. But now these boys are going to have to learn how to really use their body, use their bum, thighs, and legs, and all that kind of stuff, have their back straight. All that kind of stuff is going to play into it, and they'll learn how to pick all that kind of stuff up. And so it's going to be pretty cool to see their progress as the year goes on. The St. Kitts game was really good. Some of the changes that they had in their teams for St. Kitts was interesting. With Colossia going to hooker, which is like a really good move, because you still got Ben and Mono's there as well at props. And I think one thing I do think with St. Kitts is that their backline is going to need some work, especially in that midfield, because they're going to be young. I'm not too sure how long Trey is going to be out for at halfback, and a lot of that is going to be because Trey is like just he's a really key player to everything that happens in that team and the tempo that they play at and the organization that they play at as well. So it is going to be interesting to see how long he's out for. I know he's injured and he's recovered and he's good. It's just depending on when they want to put him out there and when they want him to come back to full strength and all that kind of stuff. He's still a young year 13, so you never know. He might just go, well, I'll just make sure I recover better, which is always the best advice, is to make sure you recover better and then maybe come back next year. I don't know. Maybe that's something that they're thinking about. But Kings still look dominant as well. Even though St. Kitts won, Kings have a really good team, have a really good squad. I like the guys that they have in there, like Christian and Jarius, and there's loose forwards. Ali was another one that I really like. Francis is my number one player in the country. Is from King's College, and he was there last year, right? And Francis, even as a year 11, his last name is Manu Leleua, and even as a young kid last year, he was still really good. But Francis this year is, I don't know. Like I'm even still thinking. I'm thinking about putting him in the actual top 200 list. And most of the time, year 11s don't even make it into my top 200 list. But yeah, I don't know. He's just so good, so mature, physically strong, and he hasn't even grown up yet. That's the other thing, is that he hasn't even grown up yet. He's still a kid. He's still 15. So what happens when he turns 18? Stop trying to mark that dude when he's 18. And he's a league boy too. Like I think he signed with the Warriors. Obviously, everyone's interested in him, but I think the Warriors have him from now. But I don't know. Whatever sport he chooses, I think he's going to be really good. And so he's a player to watch out for too. Max Webb was another one I really liked too, and he played really good. Laron Yosefa was also really good. Shea, of course, is always good. Israel Otunuku, the captain, really good. Oh, and I like their locks. The locks were the other ones that I really like as well. That's Matthew Monahan, and the other one was Robbie. I can't remember what his last name is. see if I can find it. But yeah, those two, I really like those two as players, and yeah, I think they're going to be. I think they once they figure it out, they could be one of the best, and in the 1A and even in the country. But I even said this last year, is that this year is going to be the hardest. I still haven't seen Kelson yet, and they're going to be real tough. I'm looking at seeing St. Peter's this weekend down in Rotorua. That's not confirmed yet, but that was just one that I was thinking of because I want to see them. But yeah, that you just don't want to be a part of the 1A this year. It's just going to be too hard. Too many good teams. When you got at least 7 or 8 teams who are all at a high level right now, it's just going to be so hard for these guys, and just picking who's going to be the best. The CNI one came out, and they're going to be playing North and South. And so that means that Wesley, St. John's, Hamilton, St. Paul's Collegiate, St. Peter's, Cambridge, and Francis Douglas Memorial, all in the north. And then in the south, there's St. John's Hastings, there's Lindisfarne College, there is Fielding Wanganui Collegiate, and then there is Rathkill College. Now, and I see why they did it, but it is somewhat unfair. And because the North is a lot more stronger than the South. The North competition, the North Conference is going to be way stronger than the South. Even St. John's, Hamilton have got a team full of Year 12 and Year 11 players who next year I feel like are going to be the best in the CNI, and they will be close to beating Hamilton boys. I think they were going to have a shot at beating Rotorua boys next year as well, Tauranga boys, St. Paul's Collegiate as well, with the talent that they have, depending on this year going into next year. If they can fit it all together, the coaching staff is pretty good over there, and they've got a really good rugby program set up now. So if they get it right and all the boys believe in themselves, work hard and all that kind of stuff, I think that they can be one of the best again in the country, which they did a few years back. And St. John's College Hamilton this year, I feel like they needed to play teams like St. John's, Hastings, Lindisfarne, and Masterton, down in Masterton with Rathkill, so that they could at least have some games to put it together. It's just going to be too hard with St. Peter's, St. Paul's, and Wesley, and even Francis Douglas. They may pick off some of those wins, but you always want some kind of game where things can be worked on, and you're not always just chasing a score. You just have some little light there, and you can just go, okay, let's start working on this. Let's start forming this combination better, and let's get used to each other, all that kind of stuff. Probably the last thing I want to talk about is, and that it's going to matter is, especially with the short season, all you boys, keep on your health. Make sure that you guys are all right in terms of the programs that you guys are doing, and making sure that your injuries are taken care of, and it's gonna be such an important thing when an injury happens, because sometimes you can have an injury at the beginning of the year and you can go, cool, at least I got this the school holiday part where I can recover it, and then I'll come back and it'll be okay. Now this year, once you have an injury, you're pretty much gone for the season. And so you boys just try and keep as healthy as possible. Do everything the coaches say, and coaches will help you as much as possible as well. And hopefully everyone has a good start to their season and even their preseason and what you guys are doing. And man, I'm excited to come and see some more games. Please send me guys all your schedules, and because I want to try and get in as much games as possible. I'm still going to try and make it down for the Nelson Quad this year because I just loved it from last year, so I want to go down this year as well. Um, but yeah, send me all your guys' schedules. I want to try and get it out to as much games as possible. Even the weekly games, I'm going to try and get out there as much as possible as well. This is High School Top 200. Herschel Freud, peace.